Fire types and Sinnoh, one of the most iconic and well-known duos in the Pokemon world. Fire types have always been a rare type in Nuzlocke, and the Sinnoh region takes this to an extreme, with Diamond and Pearl only having two fire types in the entire game, those being the starter and the Ponyta line. However, Platinum does fix this by adding new evolution lines. Well, sort of, which I'll explain later as well. Across the Platinum decks, there are a total of 5 evolution lines, which include the Infernape line, the Rapidash line, the Flareon line, the Houndoom line, and the Magmortar line. This is a huge step up from Diamond and Pearl, since only having 2 fire types would mean I would have to take more risky plans to counter types that would otherwise kill my fire types in return with ease, like the Cyrus fight in the Distortion world. This run was also inspired by Flygon HD's Nuzlocke of Pokemon Diamond using fire types only, which I highly suggest you check out, and I'll link in the description of the video. Now let's go on to the rules. We have standard Nuzlocke rules, so we must nickname all our Pokemon. I can only catch fire-type Pokemon, and there is permadeath. I will also be playing with no items in battle, but held items are allowed, and I do play with the species clause, so I can only catch 1 fire-type Pokemon per evolution line. With all that out of the way, let's begin the run. This is Pokemon Platinum, fire types only. I first choose my starter, Chimchar, which I named Chard, but I also have a Houndour in my party as well, and I'll explain why. During the run, and I did have more runs before this, which I'll explain later in the video, Fantina is a very consistent counter to my team at the 3rd gym, because at that point I would have only had a Monferno, a Ponyta, and a Flareon that couldn't hit Ghost type or Ghost types in general, and Monferno is weak to Miss Magius' Psybeam, while Shadow Ball hits everything else really hard. So to counter this, I decided to give myself Houndour. You can catch Houndour in Platinum naturally at the 4th gym. However, because of its dark typing, it makes this part a little bit easier. But you as the viewer may be wondering to yourself, King, won't this make the early game super easy and not as it's intended to be? And the answer is not really. Rourke is a rock type gym leader, and Monferno already beats him pretty consistently with Mach Punches and Rock Smashes, as well as using Taunt, while Gardenia is a grass-type gym leader, which will be swept by any fire type at that point in the game. And Fantina, like I mentioned before, is dealt with by Houndoom, which I'll have at that point in the game, and that's really the only sort of change I'll be making to the run in terms of encounters. And as we get into the mid to late game, it will become a lot more harder to keep my 5 team members afloat. But with all that out of the way, let's move on to the first gym. The gym battle starts with Rourke sending out his Geodude while I lead Monferno. I hit a Rock Smash that doesn't land the defense drop, which is 50%, while Geodude hits back with a pretty hard Rock Throw for a chunk of damage. We then trade Mach Punches and Rock Throws until the Geodude is down. Next is Onyx, so I use Taunt to block it from using Screech on Monferno, which would have been a run ender right then and there, because of Cranidos in the back. It hits like a truck with Headbutt and a monstrous attack stat, which could possibly kill Monferno from full HP with a crit. After landing a crit Rock Smash into a Mach Punch on the Onyx, the giant rock snake falls, and out comes the dreaded Fossil. I hit a Mach Punch for over 50% while the Fossil lands a Headbutt, bringing my monkey friend down to just 6 HP. But another Mach Punch is able to take out the Cranidos, giving me my first badge. From here, it's a straight shot to Gardenia and her grass types. However, I do get a brief scare from a double battle in Eterna Forest. There are 2 Psychics in Eterna Forest, and these 2 Psychics have an Abra. Usually this battle is free, however these Abras know the move Hidden Power, a move that has a unique type depending on the IVs of the user. And in Pokemon Platinum, these Abras always have a Hidden Power fighting. But since I am leading Houndour, they almost kill him with a hidden power fighting because Houndour is part Dark type, and it would have killed with a crit. Fortunately, Cheryl's Chansey is also in the battle and baits one of the hidden power fightings, so I'm able to switch out Houndour safely and take out the 2 Abras, but that was pretty close. After that near-death experience, we make it to Eterna City in one piece, so like you would expect, all 3 of our plants fall to a Flame Wheel from Monferno, giving me a quick and easy second badge. After this, Houndour evolves into Houndoom, and we go on to fight the Ghost Gym Leader, Fantina. However, the one thing I mentioned before here is that I could have caught the Pokemon Rotom. Rotom has many forms, including its microwave form, which you may think to yourself, that's also a fire type, why don't you include that here? And well, in Generation 4, Rotom and its forms are all electric ghost types. This means I am locked out of this honestly really busted encounter because of Platinum's limitations, or because Game Freak didn't include Rotom's additional types, like they would in Generation 5. This is incredibly inconvenient since Rotom's electric typing would have allowed me to handle water types with electric type attacks, and ground types thanks to its levitate ability. But this isn't, like I mentioned before, this isn't actually the first attempt I did of this run. I did run Rotom Heat on my team before, but it was useless on Fantina because of Miss Magius and her Shadow Balls. But it was able to sleep Maylene and crash her Wake with Thunderbolts, and at the time, Hidden Power Grass for Wake's Quagsire. However, I decided to adopt the rules for a new run, which is the one you're currently watching right now, to be more in line with the challenge of fire types only. With all that out of the way, let's see how Fantina went. However, like Gardenia before, it was a clean sweep thanks to Houndoom setting up 2 Howls and biting his way through her whole team, giving me a very, very easy 3rd badge. The next, I would say, difficult fight would be the rival fight outside of Heart Hump City. This could have gone really badly since his Staravia knows the moves Double Team, Endeavor, and Quick Attack to snipe off any teams that fail to one-shot the bird, and he also has Primplup, which knows Bubble Beam, and that will deal a lot of damage to my Pokemon since they all have pretty lousy special defense. However, I am able to deal with these threats pretty well thanks to Ponyta and Eevee. After that near-death encounter, I make it to Solaceon Town, where I find a Firestone to evolve my Eevee I got from Bay into a Flareon. But as a side note, Flareon's moveset is really bad in Platinum. It doesn't get Fire Fang until level 43, which is its only physical fire type. However, I am able to alleviate this by teaching Flareon Return, which can one-shot a lot of Pokemon even with neutral damage. From here, it isn't too much of a struggle to make it to Veilstone City, and I even passed the 2 Ace Trainers outside of Veilstone, which aren't much of a problem since the one, I think his name is Dennis, doesn't have his Gyarados like he would in Diamond and Pearl. Now, it's at this point where the run really starts to take off. Thanks to a strategy used by Flygon HD, I was able to farm items in the underground to gain infinite money, and thus infinite coins from the game corner to purchase reliable TMs like Flamethrower, Thunderbolt, and Psychic, and also items like the Zoom Lens and Silk Scarf. I would also take advantage of the berry system to gain access to the berries needed for Natural Gift and the Type Resist berries as well. I would also be taking advantage of a unique move that I can get in the Veilstone department store, Natural Gift. Natural Gift is a physical, normal type move that will change type depending on the damage output of the berry the user is holding. For example, a Petra Berry will give me an 80 base power electric type move to kill any Gyarados I come into contact with during the run. With all my newfound power, I walk into Maylene's gym, and her Meditite goes down to a few returns from Flareon, while her Machoke goes down to some Flamethrowers from Monferno. However, Monferno is sitting at pretty low HP as Lucario hits the field. I do go for a Flamethrower, however Lucario outspeeds and hits a Force Palm, killing my starter. This is basically a run-ending mistake, since Monferno is easily the best Pokemon out of the entire run, and losing him here means I would have to come up to the Wake fight, the Team Galactic fights, and the Elite Four and Champion without a starter, and those fights are pretty much impossible to beat because of Infernape's super diverse moveset to help me carry the rest of my team through these fights. And Infernape will also be used for some insane sweeps you'll see later. So it's on to attempt 2 for this run. In attempt 2, not much changes going into the early game up to Gym 4. This time, however, the gym battle goes much smoother thanks to Flareon's returns on Meditate Machoke killing and a flamethrower from Monferno on Melene's Lucario to give me a very easy 4th badge. After this, I level everyone up and Monferno evolves into an Infernape, which will be absolutely essential for the rest of the run thanks to its diverse moveset. Next, we head to Pastoria City. After crushing our rival to bits, I head inside the gym, but I do have a plan here. The strategy is again another one I borrowed from Flygon HG, and he does go more into detail with it, but this is the general idea. I will lead with Infernape on Wake's Gyarados. Infernape is holding an Iron Ball. This item quarters Infernape's speed, allowing it to be slower than Wake's Gyarados. Infernape can take a Waterfall and then slow U-turn out into another team member, preferably Ponyta, who is holding a Pecha Berry. From here, I will set up a Sunny Day with Ponyta to take a Waterfall, and then use Natural Gift with the held Pecha Berry, like I mentioned before, to give me an 80 base power physical electric type attack to one-shot the Gyarados. From here, thanks to the Sunny Day I set up earlier, Solar Beams will one-shot Floatzel and Quagsire, earning me a stressful but incredibly satisfying 5th badge. And since if Wake was stressful, then Byron and Candace are not. Both go down to flamethrowers and close combats, and the battles just go so easily, giving me a very easy 6th and 7th badge. After that, it's the Distortion World, and it's easily one of the most tedious parts of Platinum by far. But I make it through without slamming my head into my desk because it's so tedious. I don't understand why it's this complicated to get through. Maybe I just haven't played Platinum enough to memorize the patterns. But we eventually get to the Cyrus fight, and this fight is really scary. His team is firmly anti-fire type, and he has a threatening Gyarados, which we need a way to deal with. However, I do have a plan. He leads with a Houndoom, while I lead with Infernape, and this is relatively safe to set up on, since Houndoom can only really threaten us with Sludge Bomb. However, it does go for a Flamethrower, which is really nice, while I set up a Swords Dance. From here, an Earthquake, or Rock Slide I should say, kills the Houndoom in one shot, and out comes the Gyarados. But like Wake's Gyarados, I also have a held Pecha Berry, and thanks to a Natural Gift and a +1 physical electric type move can one-shot the Gyarados with no problem. Out comes Crobat, so I switched to Magmortar, which I got as a Magmar from the Fuego Ironworks. Crobat does outspeed to land a hard Cross Poison, however, it does burn the Crobat thanks to Magmortar's Flame Body. I hit a very hard Thunderbolt, and the subsequent burn takes out the Crobat on the next turn. Next up is Honchkrow. Honchkrow is very threatening since it has a huge damage output, however, I do have a counter. Somewhat. I switched to Houndoom, which can take a Night Slash, while I retaliate with a very weak Thunder Fang. Houndoom then takes a pretty hard Drill Peck, living only on 15 HP, while I switch to Rapidash. However, something very interesting happens here. The Honchkrow then uses Heat Wave, which gets absorbed by my Rapidash's Flash Fire ability. Then on the next turn, a Flash Fire boosted Flamethrower torches the Honchkrow, and the Weavile follows as well, giving me a very lucky Cyrus fight. And as a side note here, Flash Fire works similarly to Water Absorb, except it doesn't restore HP. Instead, Flash Fire will take your opponent's Fire type attack and boost your own Fire type attack by 50%. So Honchkrow essentially gave me a free Fire Gem boosted Flamethrower to slaughter Cyrus's remaining Pokemon, which is pretty cool, I guess. From here, it's on to Sunny Shore City to fight Vulcan for the 8th badge. However, he is pretty easy. Any Pokemon that knows Earthquake and a pretty good attack stat can easily sweep his team, which is what I do here. Thanks to a held Cherry Berry to block Jolteon's Thunder Wave, I can get off the Swords Dance and sweep Vulcan's entire team with Earthquake from Infernape, earning me a super easy 8th badge. From here, it's onto Victory Road and the Elite Four. Victory Road isn't too much of a problem besides some left field battles which catch me off guard and are pretty scary, but other than that, it goes fine. However, the Elite Four is on a whole nother level. Aaron and Flint are easy thanks to Infernape just slaughtering their whole teams. Lucian is somewhat hard, but Bertha is on a whole nother level because of her ground types, and especially her Golem, her Rhyperior, and her Wishcast. Just her whole team knows Earthquake, and it is really, really, really threatening. However, instead of monologuing and, being boring about what goes on in these fights, why not just montage it? Keep that hype factor going, not knowing what's coming up next, I think that'd be a lot cooler. So, yeah, let's do that. Now it's time for Cynthia, the trainer that terrorized a whole generation of children. but I do have a plan. The idea is to use the move Captivate. Captivate is a normal type move where if your opponent is the opposite gender of the user, in this case my Pokemon, it will lower the opponent's special attack by 2 stages. The plan is to use Rapidash, which is a male, against Cynthia's female Spiritomb. From there, we will Captivate it down to -6 special attack, since Spiritomb has a completely special moveset. Once we have that all done, we will then switch to Infernape after sacking the Rapidash to a crit, which is by far the best way to, get a free switch in. Once we have Infernape in, we will set up either 1 to 2 Sword Stances, and then sweep Cynthia's team with a combination of Earthquakes, Close Combats, and a Ice-type natural gift, thanks to a held Pomeg Berry for her Garchomp. As I enter the room, the air becomes heavy. My palms begin to sweat. Sweat beads from my head. I think to myself, one wrong move, one unfortunate crit on the wrong Pokemon would send me back to Twin Leaf Town, and I have no idea if I'd be able to conquer this challenge for a 3rd attack. As the battle begins, I start the plan. Spiritomb is brought down to -6 as Rapidash falls to a crit Shadow Ball. It's now Infernape's time to shine. I set up 2 Sword Stances as I begin the sweep. Spiritomb and Milotic fall to an Earthquake each. Togekiss collapses with Close Combat. And out comes the Garchomp, a Pokemon that will slaughter any Fire type that comes into contact with it. But I have a plan. Thanks to the held Pomeg Berry my Infernape is holding, I click Natural Gift, and it kills the Garchomp. The mighty beast that terrified hundreds of children when they first played Pokemon Platinum fell to a Fire type. From here, the battle is won. Roserade and Lucario fall just as quickly as they came out, winning me the run. This run was truly something. It was a lot more intense than my other runs, but I think that's what will help me grow as a Pokemon player and as a Nuzlocke player as well. But other than that, thank you all so much for watching. If you like the video, go like and subscribe or something like that. I don't know, YouTube things or whatever. And I'll see you all in the next challenge, Pokemon Black, version exclusives only.